In a city painted in shades of stark black and blinding white, two figures moved like opposing chess pieces on a board of rain-slicked cobblestone. One was the White Spy, a creature of pure, almost angelic white, from the tip of his pointed hat to the soles of his immaculate shoes. He moved with a sinister grace, his intentions as murky as the Charles River on a bad day. His counterpart, the Black Spy, was a shadow given form, a walking void in the heart of the city's perpetual twilight. His movements were sharp, jagged, and fueled by a paranoia that was probably justified. They were two sides of the same tarnished coin, locked in an eternal, ridiculous struggle for supremacy, their pointy noses twitching at the slightest hint of espionage or intrigue. Their silent war had brought them here, to the hallowed grounds of Fenway Park. It was game day. The roar of the crowd was a physical force, a tidal wave of sound that crashed against the historic brick and steel. The air smelled of stale beer, boiled hot dogs, and the faint, sweet perfume of desperation. This wasn't just any ballpark. It was a cathedral of chaos, a perfect backdrop for their brand of mayhem. The Spies, however, weren't here for the Boston Club's ninth-inning rally. They were here for a different kind of prize, one far more unpredictable than a curveball. Their mission, for once, was identical: to secure the affections, or at least the attention, of a single, extraordinary individual. The target of their dueling desires was a woman. Oh, what a woman. She was a vision from Puerto Rico, with curves that could make a seasoned sailor blush, and a smile that promised both heaven and a whole lot of trouble. She moved through the packed concourse with an effortless sway, a vibrant splash of color in this monochromatic world. Every man she passed, from the beer-bellied fan in a faded jersey to the slick-haired vendor hawking souvenirs, found their heads turning as if pulled by an invisible string. She was a walking, talking distraction, a human bombshell ticking away in the heart of the stadium, and the two spies were ready to pull the pin. Their rivalry, usually a cold war of elaborate traps and comical explosives, had suddenly become intensely personal. This wasn't about microfilm or state secrets anymore. This was about ego. It was about pride. It was about proving who was the superior operative in the field of romantic conquest. As they watched her from opposite ends of the grandstand, their narrow eyes locked in a silent, mutual declaration of war. The game on the field was nothing compared to the one about to unfold in the stands. The stakes were set, the players were in position, and the opening pitch of their absurd conflict was about to be thrown. The woman, a whirlwind of charisma and charm, made her way to the bleachers, leaving a trail of broken hearts and spilled beverages in her wake. She wasn't just walking, she was performing, and the entire male population of Section 36 was her captivated audience. She'd flash a dazzling smile at one man, then whisper something into the ear of another, eliciting a goofy, slack-jawed grin. Her laughter was like music, a siren's song that drew men closer, their common sense dissolving like sugar in hot coffee. The spies observed this spectacle with narrowed eyes, their plots growing more elaborate and petty with each flirtatious gesture she bestowed upon a stranger. Her attention soon landed on a most peculiar gentleman. He was a man of Chinese descent, perched precariously on a single leg, his other pant leg neatly pinned up. Adding to the bizarre tableau, he wore a conspicuously full adult diaper on the outside of his trousers, a detail that seemed to attract rather than repel her. He spoke to her with an earnestness that was both comical and strangely compelling, gesturing wildly about paperwork and government benefits. The woman listened intently, her head tilted, a playful glint in her eye. She seemed utterly fascinated by his strange predicament, much to the growing fury of the two spies watching nearby. The White Spy made his move first. He casually sauntered past her seat, accidentally dropping a comically oversized, diamond-encrusted watch. He bent to retrieve it with a theatrical sigh, hoping to catch her eye with his supposed wealth. But she was too engrossed in the one-legged man's tale of bureaucratic woe. Not to be outdone, the Black Spy attempted his own gambit. He produced a ridiculously large bouquet of thorny black roses from under his coat, presenting them with a flourish. The thorns, however, snagged on a passing vendor's tray, sending a cascade of peanuts and Cracker Jacks raining down on everyone, completely obscuring his grand gesture. Their initial attempts were pathetic failures. The woman barely noticed their clumsy advances, her focus remaining squarely on the diapered man and his quest for a disability check. This blatant disregard for their espionage-honed charm was a new and infuriating experience. It was a direct blow to their professional pride. The battle for her attention had to be escalated. The subtle art of seduction had failed. It was time for the less subtle art of cartoon violence. The game inside the park was ending, and their own twisted contest was about to spill out onto the streets. The crowd poured out of Fenway and onto Lansdowne Street, a river of humanity flowing under the shadow of the Great Green Monster. It was here, amidst the throng of celebrating fans and disappointed patrons, that the spy's frustration boiled over. The woman was just ahead, still chatting animatedly with her one-legged admirer. The white spy, spotting a discarded foam finger, grabbed it and launched himself at his rival. The oversized finger, wielded like a battering ram, sent the black spy tumbling into a street vendor's cart, creating an explosion of hot dogs and relish. The air was suddenly thick with the scent of boiled meat and vengeance. The black spy emerged from the wreckage, his coat now decorated with mustard and sauerkraut. He retaliated with a wicked grin, grabbing a full keg of beer from a nearby bar's dolly. With a grunt of effort that would have made a weightlifter proud, he rolled it down the slight incline of the street. The keg careened towards the white spy like a runaway train, scattering pedestrians who screamed and leaped out of the way. The white spy, displaying surprising agility, vaulted over the metallic missile using a discarded pretzel stand as a pommel horse. The keg continued its journey, finally crashing into the side of a souvenir shop with a deafening boom. The fight devolved into pure slapstick anarchy. Anything and everything became a weapon in their ridiculous duel. The white spy grabbed a string of oversized inflatable baseball bats and began swinging them like nunchucks. The black spy countered by using a manhole cover as a shield, deflecting the harmless, squeaky blows. They chased each other around the statue of the legendary slugger, using it as cover, their pointy forms bobbing and weaving in a deadly serious, yet utterly comical dance. The street became their personal playground of destruction, a symphony of crashes, bangs, and the confused shouts of onlookers who couldn't believe what they were seeing. Their battle raged, a whirlwind of black and white against the grimy brick backdrop of the city. They were so consumed by their mutual animosity, so focused on one-upping each other with increasingly absurd acts of violence, that they completely lost track of their prize. The very reason for their conflict, the beautiful woman from Puerto Rico, had vanished from their periphery. The goal was forgotten, replaced by the primitive, all-consuming need to simply win. They were two dogs fighting over a bone, oblivious to the fact that a third dog was about to walk away with it. Suddenly, a new sound cut through the chaos. It was louder than the crashing keg and more jarring than the squeak of inflatable bats. A thunderous blast of reggaeton music erupted from a nearby alley, the bass so heavy it seemed to vibrate the very foundations of the historic ballpark. The spies, locked in a ridiculous stalemate where one was trying to stuff the other into a public mailbox, froze mid-struggle. They turned their pointy heads in unison towards the source of the interruption, their brows furrowed in confusion. The music was a declaration, an anthem of victory that had nothing to do with them. Out of the alley rolled a car, but not just any car. It was a low-riding Toyota Corolla, its chassis scraping the pavement as it bounced rhythmically to the beat of the music. The car was a masterpiece of questionable taste, adorned with neon lights and a truly terrible paint job. And at the wheel, a triumphant smirk on his face, was the one-legged Chinese man. He expertly maneuvered the bouncing vehicle with his single foot on the pedals, a cigarette dangling casually from his lips. He looked every bit the king of this bizarre concrete kingdom, his diaper a strange crown atop his throne. And there, in the passenger seat beside him, was the woman. She was laughing, her head thrown back as she adjusted the volume on the stereo, adding to the cacophony. She looked happier and more content than she had all day. She glanced over at the two spies, who were now standing slack-jawed in the middle of the ruined street, and gave them a playful, dismissive wave. It was a wave that said, "Thanks for the show, boys, but I've found my ride." She had played them all, enjoying the attention before ultimately choosing the most unexpected suitor of them all. The lowrider peeled away from the curb, its thumping bass line fading down the street, leaving the two spies alone in their self-made disaster zone. They stood amidst the debris of their battle, the broken carts, the scattered food, the dented mailbox. They looked at the departing car, then at each other. For the first time all day, they shared a moment of perfect understanding. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated mutual failure. The dame was gone, the mission was a bust, and all they had to show for it was a street full of garbage and the lingering sound of someone else's victory music.